Hi everybody, welcome back to Baduk Mindset, where today we're going to be talking about how to review your own games. In the past, I made a video about reviewing your games with the AI, but I didn't feel like it was very good, and it missed the more fundamental thing, which is actually being able to review the games on your own. This will be part of a two-parter, where I'll be talking a little about the high-level ideas about reviewing your own games, and then I'll post a video where I review two of my own games so you can see what my process looks like in practice. So yeah, let's jump into it. So why would you want to review your own games? And basically, the reason why you want to review them is because specificity matters. So here you have a guy who's learning to punch using resistance bands so that maybe he can punch harder in the ring. And the idea is that maybe if you learn to punch using a band as opposed to having a weight in your hand, then that's closer to what a punching motion actually looks like. When you're reviewing your own games, you're doing exactly what you want to do, which is improve your analysis of the game. So the analysis that you do offline is very similar to the analysis that you do while you're playing. The only difference is that you're actually playing the game, and so you can't actually whip out stones and start analyzing the board like that. Still, the areas are very similar, and so if you spend time reviewing, then you'll get better at actually analyzing your games. And that's basically the idea. The other thing as well is that, say you want to improve and you don't review your games. Well, okay, well, how do you want to improve then? And most people then dive into Joseki lectures or lectures on whatever topics. And these are all well and good, but the issue is that when you're studying things, it's not necessarily clear if this will appear in real life. So this can lead to overlearning, which is a serious problem when it comes to learning Joseki, because eventually your opponents just won't know what's going on, and so they just won't play that. That's the major complaint. So if you play games and you review those games, then you're reviewing the concepts that are important at the rate at which they appear for you, which helps you to focus on the right things. So that's why it's so important to play, basically. The other thing as well is that games and problems as well, they keep you honest on the details. So if you play and you try and use a concept, and if you don't use it correctly, then you'll get punished for it. And this is a way to keep you honest, basically. If you think you know an idea, that's not the same as actually being able to use that idea. So by playing a game, it forces you to actually do what you need to do in order to carry the idea out relative to your level. So you can see that actually playing games does a lot for you. I'll talk a little, we're not just talking about the benefits of playing games and reviewing them, we're going to talk about the process as well. So the idea for the review is to think about the major themes, to note down areas that you're interested in ahead of time, either by identifying bad shape or dead stones or over concentration, that kind of thing. You then go on to actually review that game. You want to get feedback, either from an AI or from a human, and then keep a log basically to keep an overview of your games, and then to create problems to test yourself later. And then you basically repeat that for many, many, many games. So we'll look right now at getting an overview of the game. So here you can see this is one of the games that I review in the second part for this little series that I'm doing here, mini series, where here you can see that I've marked some dead stones that were on the board, and you can see that here, this looks like this is black's small area, but actually black broke into white's area here. Black has this really big area on the side, and white has some big areas as well. Black ended up losing by 6.5 points, and the reason was basically because of how he handled this area over here. The point is to be able to look at this and to say, okay, what are the major reasons? What's the major outline of this game? And that's important because otherwise you get too lost in the details, and we'll talk about that in a second. Another example here is where we can see here at the bottom, black lost some stones. So the question will be why and how did that happen? And then ended up getting disconnected in A and so on. But at the same time, we can see that white has some heavy shape here and that white died over here. And maybe there's a little bit of over-concentrated shape on the left-hand side. So as in white doesn't make a lot of points for the amount of stones invested. And so this can help to say, okay, what was the outcome? And yeah, what are the major themes? It's kind of an extension of the idea of Tawari, which is that if you play a stone, if you change the move order, that shouldn't change how you evaluate the result. It doesn't matter how you got there, the result is what matters. And here, we're using the same concept. It doesn't matter how we got to this. What matters is that white is a little bit overconcentrated here. Perhaps the starting position does matter a little bit because, for instance, if this was white's area and white got small, that's not the same as if white lives small in black's area. So, okay, maybe there's a little bit of context to evaluating it. But yeah, so this is why it's useful to look at the end of the game, to note major questions and areas, so that when you're viewing the game, you can then keep the end results in mind and see what the result was. So the important thing is not to sweat small stuff. So if you're reviewing with an AI or on your own, you might go, oh, well, is this specific move really good? And oh, this is a 0.1 mistake and so on. And I guess 0.1 is very absurdly small, such that it makes the point clear. But you don't have to be Sherlock Holmes. You don't have to go and try and find every small mistake. And the reason why you don't need to do that is because unless it caused you to lose the game, it's not that important yet at your rank. So the mistakes are relative to what your opponents can play, and if your opponents can't punish these mistakes yet, then you don't have to worry about them being mistakes. It'll just stop you from focusing on what you really need to focus on, which is the reasons why you lose. The other thing as well is that it's important not to get too lost in some reading area where you try really hard to find something that works, and then but the result is bad no matter what. And the point about strategy is that there's a timing for everything. And if you can't find a good solution, then the timing has passed. And so that means that you should go back. Here you can see Andrew Jackson, who used to teach at the Seattle Go Center. This quote is from him, basically. The mistake was earlier. That was a concept that it took me years until I heard that quote, and that's very useful. We had no AI back then. I had to review games on my own. I didn't have access to any strong players. There was no Discord. You couldn't go talk. If you had no Don player at your club, there was no way. And then even then, you weren't talking to your Don player club member most of the time. So you were very much on your own back in the days. So this was a great piece of advice that I heard, and that's why I'm sharing it now. The other thing as well is that you shouldn't go straight to reviewing with the AI. You should review on your own first. And maybe this picture is a bit bizarre. Why are we nailing nails or hammering nails into a brain? And I mean, maybe the metaphor isn't lost on you. But the thing is that the brain only remembers what's painful. If you're just told the solution to something, then that's not the same as you going out and figuring out why that is and learning the hard way why it is that way. In some sense, this is unavoidable. You just have to do this. So that's the reason why it's important to review on your own, is because then you sit with your own thoughts and then you come to your own ideas, which is important because then when you review with the AI, you then circumvent any possibility of getting what's called like a hindsight bias, where everything that the AI plays will seem super common sense, will be totally clear, but you wouldn't be able to figure it out on your own. And it's important because if you try and figure out on your own and then you review with the AI, you will then be able to realize that because you have concrete evidence that you wouldn't have thought about it. And that's when your brain goes, oh, I should remember this. And then it will go and remember that. It's the same thing with doing problems. The best way to learn is through active recall. So by reading something and then trying to write down on a page while looking away from it, trying to remember everything that was on that page. It's the same kind of idea. When you're doing a problem, there's a solution and your brain has to figure out what that solution is. And if the brain does that work to figure that solution out, that is when it learns. So it's not an accident that reviewing on your own and problems are a big part of this learning process. The other important thing is I thought this was really funny, but here you want to treat AI as if it's a kind of Socratic teacher. So the idea is that the AI can't explain why it's thinking what it's thinking. It will only give you answers. It'll just say, you can just ask it questions, you play a move, and say like, oh, well, what about this? and then the AI will respond to that. And basically, you have to explore the branches of the position so that you come to your own conclusion about what the AI is actually doing. Is your conclusion right? Who knows? You have to kind of figure it out on your own. I think in the video that comes up next, you can see that I'm actually trying to figure out why one position was really bad for me, whereas in the game, or I tried to figure out why the game position was so bad and what the AI suggested was so much better. And it took me a while to realize that this was because I was dead in the corner. That's not something that you can just see. It's something that you have to try out the branches and then realize what's going on. This is why, if you're relatively new, maybe using the AI is less helpful, but I'm not one of these doomers who thinks that AI is impossible to understand unless you're a Haidan. I think that's clearly absurd, but you do have to be a bit careful. You need to be disciplined in terms of when you use it. And then when you're using it, you have to be disciplined in terms of making sure that you explore the branches, that you test your ideas, and all this. It can be done. If you're a beginner, you'll mostly be learning from the huge mistakes anyway that are usually pretty obvious. But even if not, then it's important to go ask a person instead as well. So, yes. And another thing is to keep a log of mistakes that you do. So maybe this is perhaps a bit too high resolution or too big for most people on your screens. Basically, I have a log of games, if I won or lost them, key mistakes, how they happened, what went right, whether or not I reviewed those games. And the idea is just to keep a log of this. The reason why this is useful is so that you can keep an idea of what you need to work on over time, and also what your strengths are. So this is important as well because if you're going on losing streaks, then it helps to keep it in perspective. Like for instance, here I lost a couple of games, 5 games in a row, but then I went on to just not bother about it. Like a lost streak of 5 games isn't so bad. So it helps to keep things in perspective. For instance, like when you're improving or when you feel that you're improving, you'll then realize, oh well, even at that point, I still lose games. And if you start making mistakes, for instance, when I was playing chess and one of the losing streaks I was going on before I quit playing chess, I had trouble seeing the knights, and so you could see in my notes just all the time like knight, knight, knight. It was there, so it became clear. Oh, this is what I'm having trouble seeing, and that helps to redirect your focus, and that helps you to learn better. So it's good for keeping perspective, knowing where your weaknesses are, but also in terms of mental health as well. For instance, not just that you focus on your mistakes, but also so that you say for every game what went right. And the reason why that's so important is because as players, it's very easy to become very pessimistic about the game, to be like focused on the losses, to be focused on what's going wrong. And so that's why it's important to log as well what's going right, where are you winning, all of these things. So that way it helps to keep your brain in check. If you do this a lot, then I find that this also carries over to life as well. So if you have a very pessimistic outlook, forcing yourself to acknowledge the things that go well in each game will help you to change your outlook, which is very cool. So yeah, there are all sorts of benefits. I talked about improvement logs, keeping losses in perspective like we just spoke about, reviewing with a fair mindset so you're not hyperfixating on what's going wrong, understanding that most details never reappear. So this is why you should sweat the small stuff in a game of Go. What you see is very, very random, and so most of what you see in Go games just doesn't matter. So it's only once you start collecting the problems and turning them into problems or taking screenshots of them, that's when you start to see the patterns, and that's when you start to improve. So it's all about helping you to direct your focus and knowing when to change your approach. Like if you start winning a lot of your games and that's a green light to change something about your game, try new Joseki, change the time settings, change the server, just change something, because if you're winning, then you've grasped something, and so it's time to try something new. All of this about creating problems and keeping a log. This is stuff that I've taken from GoDave. So you can see GoDave and he talks about his database. This is basically the same idea. I think the only difference is that he doesn't keep a log or a spreadsheet of, I think he might, but he doesn't talk about that directly. If he does, then I don't remember. The main thing he uses is this folder with screenshots. And the way how I have adapted that is to just, instead of taking screenshots, turn them into problems. the reason why is, as I explained earlier, because if you do problems, you're more likely to remember it. So that's basically, that's, yeah, just trying to say that I got this from him. So, as I said, doing problems helps you to remember better and to evaluate broader patterns, but it also keeps you honest because if you're reviewing with the AI, sometimes you'll go into these very deep variations that you just won't remember. And if you turn it into a problem, you'll then realize, oh, there were like 4 concepts that I had to apply in a row and I had to apply them all correctly. And then you realize that actually solving that position isn't as easy as you think. And that's important because then that stops you from taking the wrong thing away. So as I mentioned, it's not that you're going to review with the AI and come to the wrong conclusions. Normally, if you can figure out what's going on and you're not totally confused, you can normally figure out the right conclusions. The problem is if those conclusions then generalize to your wider play. So if you're learning concepts that are way too complicated, then you won't be able to remember them because there's too much going on at once. So that's why it's important to do the problems. It keeps you honest and steers you away from this. You notice then when you're going too deeply into things. You don't need to review every game that you play. So for instance, here I played as white and you can see that I won very easily. These games are less useful to improve. It's useful maybe to review them in terms of like stroking your ego or writing down what went right. But if you want to save on time, then there's not a lot of value in reviewing these games because you were able to do everything. Below here, there's also a handicap game that I played. If you play a handicap game as black and black just keeps their entire handicap the entire game, I wouldn't review those games either. For black, it's the same principle. If you just win, then that's fine. And for white, if black, I mean, it shouldn't happen exactly like this, but as white, you might want to look at these mistakes over here where you lose ground. But if you're playing a handicap game, you're playing against black, they lose some ground, and then you just barely are not able to get there, then there was never an opportunity. It's okay. That doesn't mean that handicap is useless. It just means that maybe you should look at the other games. Although I haven't done a video about handicap go, but I think that basically as whites, you do need to think about solidifying black and giving black problems that are too easy for them to solve. That's a complicated conversation, but it can still be worthwhile to review as white. I just want to say that for handicap games where not much happens because black just solidifies and wins, black was probably just too strong. Not much in that game to review. So that's all right. You don't have to review every game, basically. What you do want is to look at these games where you have a little bit of back and forth. So I have black, maybe, I can't quite remember, and then I lose it, and then I gain a huge advantage, and then I lose it again. So, and I just barely managed to win. So these games where you have these swings, this is what you want to focus on. You want to focus on these areas where you lose or win the lead. And also, yeah, these big mistakes, sometimes they're useful, but if it wasn't important for the game outcome, then I would just leave it basically, but you can if you're curious. The other thing as well is that when you're losing and you're losing points gradually like this, so usually that means you're trying something that either doesn't work, or maybe you're going and attacking something when you shouldn't, and you're leaving yourself open with weaknesses. It's usually, or playing something that's really slow, move over move somehow, like you're somehow not finding all the best moves. Your opponent might just have better sense than you. These are more difficult to learn from, but that's kind of how to interpret them. That's something is going wrong generally, and that's that you have to find what generally is going wrong. Each individual move isn't so bad, but if you keep making them, then you lose the lead. That's basically everything that I wanted to talk about today. You'll almost certainly need to review games in order to improve. It's almost impossible. Like, I can't imagine anybody reliably improves without reviewing their own games. It's important to keep notes while you're reviewing, just so that you have a record of what you're thinking, and you learn most by reviewing your own games and testing yourself. So that helps you to put the work in, so that when you do see the answer finally, the brain remembers it. Keep a log and a problem bank from your game reviews. That way you can revisit important ideas, keep yourself honest so that you're not over-reviewing, and so that you can generalize to general principles over time, which is what you need. Because in Go, each specific position will basically never happen again. And so what you need to remember is not the specific positions, but the general ideas. And keeping a log can help you to spot those ideas and just have a good overview of your game. If you do that, then it'll help you a lot to know what you need to focus on, and when you focus on the right things, that's when you can start to improve. Finally, if you're confused, ask an AI or a stronger player, then that'll help to clear things up. That's basically everything. I'll have another video that comes out subsequently about me or having me reviewing my games, so go check that out. And then like, comment, and subscribe. And yeah, thank you very much, and I'll see you in the next Baduk Mindset.